The storm rolled across the plains like a living thing, wild, heavy, and full of noise that made even the earth tremble. Lightning cut through the sky in crooked veins, revealing the lonely outline of a barn at the edge of a forgotten trail. Rain hit the tin roof in relentless rhythm, and inside, the only light came from a single lantern that flickered on a nail, its glow trembling like the heart of the woman who stood beneath it. Emma stood near the door, her shawl soaked through, hair clinging to her face in dark strands. Her breath came shallow and uneven, each inhale dragging in the smell of hay, horses, and damp wood. She'd been walking for miles before the rain had caught her, and by the time she stumbled upon the old barn, her boots were caked in mud and her hope worn thin. She hadn't meant to intrude, hadn't expected anyone to be there, but then she heard his voice. "Need help, ma'am?" She turned quickly, startled. From the shadowed corner near the tack wall, a tall figure stepped into the light. His face was half hidden under the brim of a weathered hat, his coat glistening with rain, his presence calm but commanding. The kind of man who didn't have to raise his voice to be noticed. Jake Carson. He'd been fixing the broken stall door when the storm came down. And when he saw her, small, shivering, eyes wide like a frightened doe, he felt something in his chest tighten. He'd seen storms before, but none quite like her. Sorry, she stammered, hugging her shawl tighter. "I didn't know anyone lived out here. I just needed somewhere dry." Jake's gaze softened. "You picked the right spot." "Ain't much, but it's better than standing out there." He crossed the barn slowly, careful not to spook her, and picked up a wool blanket from the saddle bench. When he held it out, she hesitated, then took it with a small, trembling nod. Their fingers brushed, and Jake felt a jolt that had nothing to do with the storm. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't mention it." He leaned against a post, watching her with quiet curiosity. The lantern light played over her face, pale skin, a small scar on her lip, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. "You from town?" "Used to be," she said, her voice soft and distant. "Not anymore." Jake didn't press. He'd learned long ago that some stories needed time to come out. The rain gave them a rhythm to fill the silence, steady, almost like a heartbeat. He finally spoke again. "You can stay here till it eases up. Got coffee if you want it. It ain't good, but it's warm." A faint smile flickered on her lips. "Warm sounds nice." He poured her a tin cup from the pot near the fire pit, then sat a few feet away on a hay bale. For a while, neither said much. She sipped slowly, eyes distant, watching the rain dripping through a crack in the roof. Her dress clung to her, the fabric dark and heavy from the storm, but there was grace in the way she held herself. Quiet, almost defiant. Jake studied her without meaning to. Everything about her seemed fragile, yet there was something unbroken there, too. She looked like a woman the world had tried to break but hadn't quite managed to. "You traveling alone?" he asked finally. She nodded. "Been that way for a while." "That's dangerous country for a woman by herself." Her eyes lifted to meet his, steady and unflinching. "I've seen worse than danger." The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Jake didn't ask what she meant. He didn't need to. He'd seen that look before, on soldiers, on widows, on people who carried ghosts behind their eyes. Lightning flared again, and for a moment, the whole barn glowed white. Jake saw the way she flinched and moved closer without thinking. "You all right?" She nodded quickly, but her hands betrayed her. They trembled as she set down the tin cup. "I'm fine. Just storms. They remind me of—" She stopped, biting her lip. Jake didn't make her finish. Instead, he picked up the blanket from her shoulders and adjusted it gently, wrapping it tighter around her. "It's just noise, ma'am. Can't hurt you now." Her gaze found his again, and for a heartbeat the world seemed quiet. There was something in his voice, rough, yes, but gentle. Like a man who knew what it meant to be haunted, but still tried to offer peace to someone else. "You don't talk much, do you?" she said softly. He smiled a little. "Talking ain't never been my best skill." She tilted her head, the faintest trace of teasing in her tone. "Then what are you good at?" Jake leaned back slightly, thinking. Keeping promises, mending fences, listening when folks need it. Her lips curved, a small spark of warmth in the stormy quiet. And what if I needed more than just someone to listen? The question caught him off guard, not in the way of flirtation, but something deeper, more aching. He could see it in her eyes. She wasn't asking for love or comfort. She was asking if kindness still existed in a world that had given her none. Jake's throat felt dry. Then I reckon I'd do my best to give it, he said finally. The rain softened outside, turning into a whisper. The air inside the barn grew warmer, but the space between them felt charged, like one wrong word could shatter it. Emma took a small, trembling step closer, her voice a whisper over the rain. You make it sound so easy. Jake looked down at her, his chest tightening with a feeling he hadn't known in years. Nothing worth doing ever is. They stood like that for a long time, neither moving, neither speaking. The lantern burned low, the rain faded, and the smell of damp earth filled the air. Then she took another small step, close enough that he could see the reflection of the fire in her eyes. Jake, she began, her voice breaking slightly. Aren't you gonna kiss me? He froze. Not because he didn't want to, but because he understood what she was really saying. She wasn't asking for passion. She was asking for safety, for proof that tenderness could still exist in a world that had only taken from her. He set his hat aside, his movements slow and deliberate, and met her gaze with steady calm. All night long, he said softly, if you let me. Her breath caught and she nodded, eyes glistening. When he leaned down, their lips met, not in hunger, but in quiet need. It was a kiss that felt like forgiveness, like the rain washing dust from the earth, like two broken souls finding a moment of stillness together. Morning broke slow and quiet over the Carson ranch. A faint blush of pink spread across the desert horizon, glinting off the wet earth and turning the puddles into mirrors. The storm had passed, but its scent still lingered, the clean, heavy smell of rain on dust. Inside the barn, the light crept through the cracks in the boards and found them sitting near the coals of a dying fire, wrapped in the same wool blanket. Emma stirred first, blinking against the pale light. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw the horses, the tools, the familiar outline of the man beside her, broad-shouldered, quiet, still half asleep against the post, and she exhaled softly. She'd meant to leave before dawn, to vanish like she always did, before kindness could start to feel like home. But she hadn't moved. Jake opened his eyes slowly, feeling the shift in the air. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her. There was a calmness in her now, though her eyes still carried that faraway ache. She smiled faintly. You sleep like a rock, she said, her voice still hoarse from the cold. He smirked a little, rubbing the back of his neck. Spent half the night making sure the wind didn't take the roof off. You didn't have to stay. He met her gaze. I did. The words settled between them like the soft thud of rain on earth. Neither knew what to say next. She busied herself with the coffee pot, though her hands trembled slightly as she poured 2 cups. The warmth steadied her, but her heart still raced in that uneasy way she'd known since childhood. Every time someone tried to be good to her, part of her wanted to believe it, and part of her wanted to run. Jake took the cup, studying her over the rim. You planning to head out? She hesitated. I should. Folks don't like strangers hanging around. Don't bother me none. She looked at him, a mix of disbelief and something gentler. You're not like most men. He shrugged, a slow, thoughtful movement. Don't know if that's good or bad. It's good, she said softly. Outside, the ranch was waking up. The wind carried the low call of cattle, the clinking of the windmill turning slow circles. Jake stood and stretched, his frame filling the barn doorway like a shadow against the light. He turned back toward her. There's breakfast in the house, if you ain't in too big a hurry to run. She smiled. Barely there, but real. You cook too? I try not to poison myself, he said, grinning. That's about the extent of it. He walked toward the house, and after a moment of hesitation, she followed. The small cabin stood a short distance away, rough-built but sturdy, surrounded by the quiet beauty of wide land and open air. Inside, it smelled of coffee and pine and a life lived alone for too long. He set a pan on the stove, the crackle of bacon filling the silence. Emma took a seat by the window, watching the horizon stretch endlessly. "You live here all by yourself?" "Been that way since my brother passed," Jake said, flipping the bacon. "This land's been in my family near 20 years. Ain't much, but it's mine." She looked at the pictures on the wall, faded photographs of men in hats, a woman holding a baby, and a boy with the same blue eyes Jake had. "You must have loved him." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, he was the kind who could talk the stars down from the sky. Me, I was always better at just watching them." She smiled faintly. "You still do?" "Most nights," he said. "World's quieter when you look up instead of D."